Okay, so tell me, what does the red pill get right about the differences between men and women?
Well, it's quite simple. See, now remember, coming from a doctoring standpoint, if I'm going to approach a female, there's a certain level of hormones that a woman has compared to a guy. The biology of a woman, once again, hormones affect a woman and a man both physically and mentally. So therefore, the traits that women have are biological. For example, we know that testosterone has not only physical and mental traits, but the idea is the mental traits, once again, today are looked at as bad, as toxic, which, for example, testosterone makes a man very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, makes him very laser focused, makes him very competitive. And with the exception of world of sports, that's looked down for in the world of men.
Right.
But that's biology. When it comes to a woman, by nature, estrogens are very connective. That's why, like I said, men create society, women create a home. But what they're trying to do now is create the home to society. And guess what happens? If you try to make a home life into a football team,
Mm-hmm.
it would be it wouldn't match up.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is this, and there are cross traits, but the sad part is this, and what we're seeing now today is we're trying to make traits of both men and women dramatically different. That's unbiological,
Mm-hmm.
because by nature, estrogens do certain physical and mental things to women, testosterone do certain physical and mental things to them, and we're trying to tell people that's wrong. And I'm going, you're just fighting against your biology. And I'm going to go into great detail of it. I'm going to show you how I figured this out 24 years ago and why I've taught this for so many years. So when all this stuff has come out recently in the last 5-10 years, I'm like going, you guys are dramatically leading people down a wrong path that's going to affect them both physically and mentally. That's going to lead to a lot of problems. So long story short, as a teenager, as a 13-year-old teenager, I started to figure this out. And back then, the medical field, they didn't drug many kids. So everything was counseling or everything was behavioral changes. But there was internal physical changes that led to those mental changes. So I started to figure out as a teenager, and I started to change my foods, and I realized that an immunological problem. So then I graduated high school, went to college, and I said, listen, I'm going to study nutrition, immunology, and I thought maybe I'm going to go into some medical field that did it. Well, I realized that the natural route actually gave me more answers, because if you look at today,
Mm-hmm.
it's a $2.5 trillion system
Mm-hmm.
of trying to change people psychologically, pharmaceutically.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody ever suffers from a psychological condition because they have a pharmaceutical deficiency. Now, I know it's kind of funny saying that, but think about that.
Mm-hmm.
No one suffers because they lack psychiatric medication, why they have problems this way.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, I started to really get into it, and I was going through school. I went to my graduate school. I got my undergraduate degrees, and then all of a sudden, I met this woman towards the end of my graduate school, my doctorate, and all of a sudden, get this. I was starting to date her. And no joke, on the second day that I met her, she looked at me and she said, I think I'm going to marry you. And I looked at her, I said, you know something, I think you're right. And so we started to hang out. And then after about a couple of weeks of dating, she actually let me know that she couldn't have kids, that she was infertile. So she suffered from endometriosis. She suffered from cystic acne, ulcerative colitis, and cluster headaches. And she was seeing both medical and natural people and continue to get sicker. And at this time, I'm 24 years old and she's 23. Well, and find out, but Pearl, if you looked at her, you'd have never even thought anything was wrong. She's petite, cute, blonde, everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I started to look at it and go, oh my goodness. And knowing being a doc now, and I'm not fully graduated, I had about 3 months left of school. I actually looked at her and said, can I see your labs? Because it's some hormonal issue. And then that's when I realized that once again, that what the doctors were doing to her was dramatically incomplete. For example, Pearl, and I'm going to ask you a question, so walk me through this. If we look at just hormones in general, as a male, what is the major dominant hormone that makes me who I am as a male, just in general?
Is it testosterone?
100% right.
Okay.
100% right. Okay. Now, as a woman, you have a predominant hormone. Which one do you think makes you both physically and mentally who you are?
Estrogen?
What if I told you estrogen is not a hormone, that you've been lied to?
Oh, okay. What is it? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
but
I'm not a science person.
I know, but think about this though. But here's what I want women to understand about this. Most women don't understand the biology of what they have, so therefore they don't understand the physical and psychological things that happen with them. So they think there's wrong. Or watch this: if they get abnormal, it can change their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
A woman could even think she's a guy. We're going to get into that. But hold the thing.
Wow.
But the idea is this: we're going to get down there. We're going there. Okay. And here's what happens. So here's what happens. Estrogen is not a hormone. Estrogen is a term that represents many hormones. And when I realized with every physical and psychological condition that women were suffering with, and even men, that they were not testing women properly, they weren't getting the complete picture, but they were making judgments on people's physical and mental health based on incomplete information. So I started calling up labs all over the world, say, listen, can we measure things? No joke. I called the largest lab in the world. And I said, can we measure these? He said, yes, but why? And insurance doesn't pay for them. That, guess what? Not only are female hormones not described to women so they can make great judgments of what happened to them physically and mentally, but they're being misled and lied to. And now today, we're being lied to that abnormal hormonal problems are actually should be accepted as normal. Because if all of a sudden, here, watch this. If I were to take synthetic testosterone and inject you with that, Pearl, you would start to take on male characteristics, both physically and mentally. And just because you thought you were a guy, I would say, listen, no. You're taking an outside source that's going to cause you to think and act differently, even and biologically change.